take on, including, the film preservation program, which is a big important part of what we're doing.
And you were just mentioning before lunch to me that it's just the Oscars is just the tiny part of what the Academy does. I mean,
it's a very visible tiny part of what we do. It's very visible, of course. The world knows about that statuette, and so far, this is its 87th year, 89th. Which one? It's the 89th year coming up. So for 89 years, it's been the symbol of excellence around the world. So it's important.
No,
very
we also
important.
got ourselves photographed on that symbol. Everyone does that.
Yes, everybody does. But it is one part of what we do. As I say, we have our preservation section. We have our student film. We deal with students around the world and their works, and we award prizes to fine student films. We have script writing sections of the Academy, and on and on and on. We have 17 areas of membership in the Academy, and each one of those areas of membership we call them, they deal with the crafts. Every one of them is about creativity. Every single craft, from sound mixing to film editing to cinematography to acting, of course, and on and on and on. So the Academy is involved and promotes all of those disciplines around the world.
Yeah. And how does one become a president? I mean,
how does one become a president? Well, as I say, it's humbling and an honor. I was surprised, happy, and shocked when the Board of Governors voted me president of the Academy in 2005. Many people wanting that job. By the way, it's not the very best paying job in the game. In fact, it doesn't pay anything. It's an honor. And I think those of us who have been president, on the one hand, we take it as an honor. On the other hand, we work too hard to not get paid anything at all. But yes, I became the president in 2004, was at the helm of 4 Oscar shows. That's a pretty big job.
And you were a producer before that?
And a producer before that and after that. In fact, I'm working with my wife, who's in the audience, on some of her projects now, and just finished a documentary, which I hope will play here in India one day. We just now finished it. And a feature. So, still doing it.
So what are we going to be? We're going to be looking at today how does one get nominated for a foreign? What are the rules of getting nominated for a foreign language Oscar? And I think that what is really important is that with feature films, at least from our country, we understand that the country has to nominate a particular film to be elected. But what happens to documentaries and what happens to the other forms? Because that's something which many people are not aware. So I hope in your talk you are able to cover the rules for even those
I
things.
will. I'll explain it as best I can, sure enough. The rules are clear, only they're a little bit complicated. So I'm going to try. The main purpose for me to be here is to kind of lay out for you how a film first gets submitted to the Oscar, to the Best Foreign Language category, and then hopefully eventually gets nominated. Submitted and then nominated, two different things. So I'll be doing that. I did want to say something about my career, actually.
I would love to hear that.
What led me to all of this? Why is it that I'm so in love with movies and very happy and settled in my profession over the many years that I've been doing it? And it really does go back to when I was a kid. There's no question about it. When I was a kid, I lived in Brooklyn, New York, and in Brooklyn, New York, right in my neighborhood, there were 8 single standing cinemas. 8, just around my neighborhood, within walking distance. And my pals and I would go to the movies all the time. We'd go on Saturdays, and we'd go on Saturday afternoon, and then often we'd go on Saturday and Sunday as well. But also there was a ninth theater just a little further away, and that's the one that showed foreign films. And, you know, when I became a teenager, I thought, I wonder what a foreign film is all about. And I went into that theater and saw a foreign film called Diabolique, a French film with Simon Signoret and Yves Montand. And I thought, wow, that's pretty amazing. And then I went back and saw Black Orpheus. And there I learned about, you know, I focused on what music can do in a film to increase the drama. Right. That was one of the things I came away from. And then I saw Satyajit Ray's Patha Panicelli in 1955 or 1956. I must have been 15 or 16 years old.
My God, that's wonderful, because this must have been Tessa's presentation must have been very emotional for you.
It was, and even by looking at, I haven't seen the film since I was a teenager. I know I do, but that's what convinced me that I wanted to be in this business, and it convinced me completely. Those three movies, but definitely Rai's movie was one of the really important ones. Great dramatic story that moved me, you know, emotionally moved me. Then there was one American film, I just want to say it, as long as I'm outlining exactly what did it. There was a film that Fred Zinnemann made even earlier than that, 1952, called High Noon.
Oh, of course.
With Gary Cooper and Grace Kelly?
Grace Kelly, that's
Grace
right.
Kelly and Gary Cooper.
We can't forget the ending of the film.
Yeah. And there, too, you know, I understood drama, that there was a way of conveying drama that was different than the regular drama of life, but it was cinema drama. Yeah. So anyway,
wonderful memories.
Yeah.
So should I leave the presentation now to you to take everybody through the process?
Okay. Bear with me, everybody. I'm going to give you some rules and regulations along the way.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Thanks, Ed. Thank you.
Gracias.
Merci.
Solidarności. 谢谢大家的关心。
Merci, merci beaucoup.
Grazie tanto.
Сакапополи.
Merci.
Минера Константинова. Спасибо большое.
Dank u wel.
Domo arigato, Mr. Roboto.
Muchísimas gracias. Thank you so much.
Of course. Can you hear me? Is this on? Hello, hello. Can you hear me? Yes. It's simple. Best foreign language films. People who are grateful for their work being honored by the Academy. And my job, as I said, is just to kind of let you know the rules and regulations for the foreign language category. But before I do that, I just want to take a moment or two to give you my own impressions of why this category is so important. And I'm going to start by going back to the Academy's mission, or at least my paraphrasing of the Academy's mission. It's pretty simple and straightforward. The Academy exists to advance the arts and the sciences of motion pictures worldwide. It's to recognize outstanding achievement, that's the Oscars, worldwide. Am I on? Okay. Oh, thank you. How's that? Even better? Okay. And as I said before, to recognize outstanding achievement, that means the Oscars, that means money in the bank for the Academy to do all of the programs that we do over the year. To provide a common forum and meeting ground for branches and crafts worldwide. And that goes to a place where a sound man can talk to a sound man from their branch from another country, or sound woman from another country, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in a minute, and to represent the viewpoint of the actual creators of the motion picture worldwide. So I think the most important part of what I just said to you is that the Academy is not a Hollywood organization, and it's not a U.S. organization. It transcends borders completely, and it's about filmmakers all over the world, and it's about art. And my wife and I were talking yesterday about that, about art, and we were talking about real art and how the foreign language category is such a wonderful purveyor of true art. And art, of course, transcends convention. And we know real art when we see it. We know real art that takes us to another place and then connects us to our own common humanity. And a perfect example of that is here at IFI, when we saw Andreas Vajda's After Image, an amazing movie about what happened in the 50s, a true story, that for me took me to that place, important in the history of the world, and gave me the opportunity to understand the human condition in those days from another time with, Vajda's startling reality and authenticity, the artist presenting to the world his view on what happened in Poland in those days. And with a film like Vajda's movie, After Image, real art is often revolutionary and takes us to places we haven't been. Real art, as we know, is courageous, provocative, sometimes it's funny, and it encourages us to think beyond what we know in unconventional ways. And I think that in this world today, we all must think that way. We have our own daily issues and daily problems, but we also have to think beyond those daily issues and daily problems. And the foreign language category most often puts us on that road. There's a new Academy member who just became an Academy member this year, a young filmmaker from Brazil named Vera Blasi is her name. She's a part of this class of 2016, new members. And she said, foreign films teach you a new language, but it's not the language you think. It's the language of cinema. That's her motto, and it's really interesting. It was interesting for me to hear that and contemplate what she's saying. She's saying, I think, at least from my point of view, cinema has the ability to tell you the truth, but tell it in a way that is unique and of high art. And what's really nice about what's happening with her, this young Brazilian filmmaker, and this new generation of filmmakers, I think part of it is the serious new generation of filmmakers are actually very interested in the work that's preceded them, inspired by names that are now legends to many of us, like Satyajit Ray, and like Jean-Luc Godard, and Wajda, and Antonioni, and Buñuel, and Resnais, and Kurosawa, and Bergman, and on and on and on and on and on. Foreign language cinema hasn't lost its appeal as an artistic means for the most inspired young voices in movie storytelling today. Even old-timers like Vajda, whose final work, this is his last film, he died before it was ever released. In fact, I'm not sure, but I think that the showing here was, I think it was among the first showing of this great work of art. He worked until the very, very end, inspiring these young filmmakers. He kept on informing and amazing us right up until the very end. So now, having said all that, it's time to consider what's next Well, what's next for the Academy is more and more and more, the Academy is becoming a global community. And especially in this last year or two, the Academy has made a sincere and real effort to seek out filmmakers from other parts of the world. And you know what I mean by that, other parts of the world. The other part of the world is the United States. We know that, and that's great, and that's wonderful. But this year, 683 new members have been invited. You become an Academy member by invitation. And there's a process for that. And I think if you look at the website, the Academy website, you'll understand the process for that. 683 men and women are now new Academy members. And what's amazing about that number is that 98 of that new breed, 683, had been nominated for Oscars along their career. It's not easy to become an Academy member. It takes, a life's work, not a life's work, but some really important film work to be considered for Academy members. So that 98 of these new members are Oscar nominees out of 109 nominations, and 28 of those names are actually Oscar winners. Oh, sorry. Has it been that way for the last 10 minutes? No, it just happened. Okay, bear with me, everybody. While Brooke is dealing with it, I think I can say to you, good. Oh, not good. I'm going to go on, okay? What I wanted to say to you was, I have some other statistics, nice charts. You won't see them. I see them perfectly well here. On the opening night ceremonies, we heard that this is the year of the woman, certainly as it relates to Indian filmmaking and this IFFI film festival. Well, the Academy is recognizing that in a big way. And, as I said, 683 new members. Of those 683 new members, I want to tell you that 48% of the new members are women. A really important statistic, especially when the Academy has been, fingers pointed at it, or another way of saying it is accused of not recognizing gender, women, and also not paying attention to diversity. On the diversity side, 41% of the 683 new members are people of color. So we're getting there. We're doing what we know we probably should have been doing it over the years, but now we're deep into it, and has become a way of the Academy kind of reaching out to the global community. Now it's time to talk about the Foreign Language Film Awards. If the slides were working, you would see one that says the Foreign Language Film category was introduced in 1956, so 60 years ago. This is the 60th anniversary of that category, the Foreign Language Film category. The very first year, there were 5 nominated films, and they were chosen from. I'm okay, so don't worry about it. If you guys are okay, I'm okay. You okay? Okay. You're missing some charts, but it's not that important, I don't think. The submissions were chosen from 8 countries, and those countries were Denmark, France, West Germany, Italy, Japan, the Philippines, Spain, and Sweden. So 8 countries 60 years ago. This year, 2016, 120 countries have submitted eligible films, and of course, India has submitted interrogation by, please tell me if I'm pronouncing this correctly, Vetri Maran. Is that close enough? Yes. Okay, thank you. Yeah, directed by Vetri Maran. You know who I mean. And what's that? Yeah, yeah. And over the course of all those years, I wonder who you think, what country you think has won the most nominations. Anybody have an idea? I'm going to tell you in a minute. Yeah, which one? You're exactly right. It is France. He said France, and it is. Oh, it said. Oh, France with 37. Does it also say that Italy has won the most? Oh, okay. 11 wins for Italy. Sorry about it. But I bet you didn't know that three, or maybe you do know, that three Indian films over the course of those 60 years have been nominated. In 1957, Mother India was nominated, submitted, and then became a nominee. In 1988, it was Salam Bombay, and in 2001, it was Lagan. Lagan? Yeah. Okay. And then if we had the slides, you'd see this list. You can see there are names on this list. We're proud to say, maybe it's not enough. I'm sure you filmmakers would say it's not enough. These are the names of ethnic Indian men and women who, over the course of time, have been nominated or won Oscars. I think the last one was A.R. Rahman, I believe, who won during the time that I was president of the Academy, so that made me feel good. I got to know him pretty well. A pretty good guy and a fine artist. Well, I think now what I'm going to do is tell you about these rules that sometimes seem obscure, but are really not. So if you bear with me, I'll be reading some of this, so please understand it's because they are precise rules. First thing that you should know is an Indian film submitted to the Academy has to be submitted by an organization. And in fact, there's a film organization in India called Film Federation of India, and they are charged with the responsibility of submitting the Indian film. And we, the Academy, once we vet that organization and we feel and believe that that organization can do the job, they then become the submitting organization for India and for France and for, every place else in the world. Interrogation submitted by the Film Federation of India. And then I want you to know that a foreign language film is defined as a feature-length motion picture produced outside the United States. This is where the nationalism comes into it, the American nationalism. The film has to be produced outside of the United States with a predominantly non-English dialogue track. Now, it says predominantly non-English dialogue track. That means that about 50% of the dialogue in the film has to be not in the English language. But it doesn't have to be from India. It doesn't have to be in one of the Indian languages. It can be in Spanish. It can be, in Japanese. It doesn't matter. And it can be submitted by India. And then the film must be first released in India, and there's a time element to this. For 2000, using 2016 as the example, a film has to be released in India no earlier than October 1st, 2016, and no later than September 30th, 2016, a couple of months ago. And be the first publicly exhibited, and be first publicly exhibited for at least 7 consecutive days in a commercial motion picture theater for profit of the producers and exhibitors. Submissions must be in 35 millimeter, 70 millimeter, or in 24 or 48 frame progressive scan digital cinema format with a minimum projector resolution of 2048 by 1080 pixels. So, yes, even though we still like we heard this morning from Tessa, we still very much on a 35 millimeter film presentation. We certainly understand and know that there's also another way to do it digitally, and it's perfectly fine. There are other qualifications, which I'll be happy to go over later on. They're a little bit more technical. And the audio side of it, the audio track has to be a DCP format, and it's typically 5.1 or 7.1 channels of discrete audio, basically, and then there are some other requirements. There's another requirement. It says the picture must be advertised and exploited during its theatrical release in a manner considered normal and customary in theaters and theatrical feature distribution practices. The picture need not have been released in the United States. Some people are confused by that because for the Best Picture category, I'll get to it later, but for the Best Picture category, one has to play the film in the Los Angeles area for 7 days. But for the Best Foreign Language category, the picture does not have to play in the United States. It has to play in the country of origin for 7 days. Later on, I'll tell you if that film made here in India wants to be a part of the let's call it the main section of the Oscars, then yes, it does have to be released in the United States as well for 7 days prior to the end of the year. So pictures eligible for 2016, this year, still have the opportunity to play their films in the United States up until December 31st, the end of the year. Then there's another interesting and important rule, which says that films in any version receiving a non-theatrical public exhibition or distribution before their first qualifying theatrical release will not be eligible for Academy Award consideration. Non-theatrical public exhibition or distribution includes broadcast and cable television, pay-per-view, video on demand, DVD distribution, and internet transmission. If a film plays on any of those outlets, plus I'm sure there are others, then it does not qualify in the Best Foreign Language category. It's a rule. It's a rule that you have to pay attention to because there's an instinct to play your work on cable television, let's say, or pay-per-view. Don't do it if you want your film eligible for submission into the Academy. The recording of the original dialogue track as well as the completed picture must be predominantly in a language or languages other than English. Sorry, I said that already, but what's important about this one is accurate, legible English language subtitles are required. Now here's a more subtle rule and requirement. The submitting country, India, must certify that creative control of the motion picture was largely, there's a word for you, largely in the hands of citizens or residents of that country. Largely in the hands of citizens or residents of that country. And what goes with that is at either a producer, a director, or a, let's see, there was another one, a producer, a director, or actor, or certain actors, lead actors, would have to be from India for if there's a question about creative control. Below the line cast can be anybody. It can be as diverse as you want. And if there is a dispute about its eligibility, the executive committee of the Academy, which I'll get to in a moment, are the ones who make the final judgment about whether the film is eligible to be submitted. There is such a thing called the Foreign Language Film Award Executive executive committee at the Academy, and as I said, it resolves all questions of eligibility. Now, when it comes to submissions, there's only one way to get a film submitted, and that's through the organization that we talked about before, the Indian organization. They are the only ones who are licensed to submit a film to the Academy from India. And then each country shall be invited to submit its best motion picture to the Academy. Selections of that picture shall be made by one organization, as I said. And that organization, I didn't say this before, the Federation organization should include artists and or craftspeople from the field. And only one picture will be accepted from each country. And then the Academy has rules about how to send in that film for submission, and it would be up to the producer then, once a film is chosen, to see to it that a whole list of submission qualifications are met, like a completed online submission form, 35 or 70, film print or DCP with accurate, legible English language subtitles, full cast and credit list, brief English language synopsis, director's biography, 3 to 5 stills, a poster from the film's theatrical release, and then the ad copy that we talked about before, the fact that it's been playing and advertised, also has to be submitted. And then if you're lucky enough to be the submitted film, and even more lucky to then get that film shortlisted, then you're in business, because you're close to a nomination. Not nominated yet, but close to a nomination. Countries whose films are shortlisted will be required to provide the Academy with 2 additional prints. Foreign language film nominations will be determined in 2 phases. The first phase, which is going on now in Los Angeles only, is the phase where Academy members, I would say a big group of Academy members, maybe 200 or 250 Academy members, every night over a period of 6 weeks, has the opportunity to see 2 films a night, 2 films, one film from India, one film from Spain. Those films are chosen by lottery. They have no other meaning than they're playing on a certain night. So that phase 1 group picks its top 6 choices, and then the Foreign Language Film Award Executive Committee, a much smaller group, picks an additional 3 choices to be considered for nomination. So there are 9 films in this process now that are considered for nominations. So then the phase 2 group will screen those 9 shortlisted films in 3 cities, New York, London, and Los Angeles, and vote by secret ballot to determine what 5 films will be nominated for the Oscars. And there you have the 5 nominated films. So it's a long road, but of course we know it's a worthwhile road. Final voting for the Foreign Language Film Award shall be done by all active Academy members, and the rest, in a certain sense, is history. It's all secret balloting. None of us know. When I was president for 4 years, never once did I know in advance of the announcement of the winner who the winner was. They kept me and everybody else far away. There's an accounting firm in in LA called Price Waterhouse. They keep the winners a secret and even count the ballot in a secret way. And the foreign language category is privy to all of the secrecy and good, solid excitement of what happens when that envelope is open on stage. One more thing I want to I want to tell you a couple of more things I want to tell you. The statuette itself will be awarded to the motion picture and accepted by the director, not the producer, but the director, on behalf of everybody, on behalf of all of the picture's creative talents. For Academy purposes, the country will be credited as the nominee, not the movie and not the director, but the country. So the winner is India. The director is whoever the director is. Although the director's name will be listed on the plaque, but the country is the main winner. And then I mentioned before eligibility in other categories. Your film can be eligible in the other Academy categories, but only if it meets the requirements. And those requirements are that thing that I was talking to before, which is playing in the Los Angeles area for 7 days, for 7 consecutive days. And then it can be eligible, as Slumdog Millionaire became eligible in other categories, and won in some of them. So I think I have done my best to tell you how this process works and how eventually films get nominated and then, ultimately become one of the 5 nominees and, with some good luck, the winner. So I'm totally willing to take some questions from anybody in the audience, of course. Happy to. Yes? I'm okay. Good.
Good afternoon, everybody. Sir, my name is Supran Sen. I am the Secretary General of Film Federation of India, which submitted the films. Now, so there is one quick clarification. Among the eligibility criteria, the films released up to 30th September is eligible, right, sir? And the date of submission, last date of submission is 3rd October. Mm-hmm. If the film is released on 30th September, it's not possible for the 7 consecutive days, right? Mm-hmm. So we have been writing to the Academy.
That's right.
Yes.
You'd be eligible next year.
Yeah. No, not next year also, no, because the 30th September of that year particular. Like, for instance, we submitted, yes. Okay, from 1st October to 30th September is the eligibility.
That is a problem.
Then 30, yes, that's a big problem. And this year what happened, we had a lot of problem because 30th September happened to be a Friday. And India, the films are released on Fridays.
Oh, yes, of course.
So then we requested the Academy to send a clarification. Then they said, of course, that if it is slated for release on the 30th, suppose a film is coming on the 30th, you can see that film and
yeah, go ahead.
If that is, short of, suppose we fix our release on the 30th, then you can see that film and then you can select it, right?
Yeah.
But generally it's a very bit problematic because some producers may not like to give the film because they said if we give it, then there is a problem of piracy, etc. And there are lots of things.
Well,
so that clarification is very much required. In fact, from the time of Bruce Davis, I have been submitting the films, so we may sought some clarification from Bruce Davis also, but then it is still, we are not very much aware. And regarding this predominantly non-English dialect track, so they said that it should be 60 and 40. If it should be 60 in your language and the 40 in the can be in the other language. So that was. So, sir, that particular clarification, if I can get about that release date, that 7 days consecutive, it's not possible. Yeah. If you could just, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
It's, of course, a little hard to
That's what I'm
pinpoint it exactly. It's tricky. 60-40, 50-50 is more like it. And it's subjective. It's
because last year also we had one film, where lots of dialect track were in English. Because the court language in India is always in English, generally in high courts and others. So there was a film where this English language was used in all the court languages. The jury had a lot of problems. He said, then can it be called a predominantly English, non-dialect track? So then these are various factors, which we face problems. But the most important is this, sir. If the 30th September is the release, it cannot be 7 consecutive days because if the last date is 3rd October.
Before I leave, I want to get your information so I can be really clear with you. I'll send you an email or something exactly about that because I think, I'm not sure of this, but I think if the film opens, if the first day of the showing is the 30th, then it doesn't have to have 7 days prior to that. It can, as long as it opens on the 30th, it can have the next 6 days into October, I think. I'm not positive.
No, but then the problem, as I said, sir, then if it's releasing on the 30th, the producers are a little reluctant to submit the films, because of this.
Yep.
So that's a very important factor.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I'll
sir.
try
Thank
to
you
get
very
some
much. Thank
more
you very
clarity
much.
for
Thank
you. Here's a question in the back.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hello.
I'm Rupesh Kumar. I would like to know, would Academy ever choose a film which actually criticizes cinema or talk about, a film which talk about influence of cinema?
And your question is what? The
Uh,
virtue?
Yeah, the question is, would Academy, do you think Academy will ever choose a film which actually criticize cinema or talk about influence of cinema? I mean, cinema is a very powerful medium.
Of
A lot of
course.
people have, it has changed the world, it has changed the life of actors,
Of
it has
course.
changed the whole world. So I've made my first film, it's called Life is a Film, and it talks about why a lot of celebrities died very early in life, like Paul Walker, Heath Ledger, a lot of other actors.
Uh-huh, yes.
And also it goes on the route of understanding if there is any connection.
I can only answer that question from my own experience in watching film, not foreign film necessarily, just film. It doesn't matter to me. If it's a great story, I promise you, that's what's important to me. And I believe that most Academy members feel the way I do. So if a film is critical of cinema, good. If it's a great film, I think, now this is maybe me, looking at it, we say sometimes through rose-colored glasses, but I do believe, we're grown women and men, if there's a good story and it's critical of something we know, then we should, especially in art, we should be able to accept it, go with it, and if it's really great, vote for it. You're welcome.
Normally, you take one film from one country.
Yep.
In India, there are 1,200 films produced in a year, and one film gets selected for Oscar submission. So the competition in India is more tough than at Oscar, because you select 1 out of 120, but in India we select 1 out of 1,200 to be selected.
How many? 1,400?
1,800 last year. So
1,800.
why don't you consider some weightage on the number of films produced in that particular country?
You're talking like the Electoral College in the United States. We have enough problems with that. Please. Can't do it. I'm glad you understand the humor in it. But we really can't do it. And I think the number of eligible U.S. films is something like, is it 400? I think around 400 eligible every year, something like that. 1,200, of course, is an enormous number. It can't be any other way. Yeah. Well, there's only one language in the United States because Americans think it's the only language in the world. So I know.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah,
Thanks for the information.
of course.
Sir, why foreign language category restricted to only the best film? Like, from not only from India, we can get, there is segments like cinematography and other like sound engineering and all. Why it is foreign film category restricted to only best film in Oscars? I mean,
What would you suggest? Only best film. What else would you suggest?
maybe, as like, other Oscar awards, like, into cinematography and makeup, every, into every department, right? So,
Well, it's the way I understand the question, I think. Do you have an answer, ma'am?
I think what he's saying is why can't they compete in all the other categories like best cinematographer, best?
The
I
Indian
think they
film?
do in acting.
You can.
Yeah.
As I was saying, you can submit in the cinematography competition and in the editing competition. But to do that, you have to play in Los Angeles for 1 week, 7 days prior to the end of the year. But you can. Thank you.
okay, thank you.
What is his question? Yeah. Best foreign language film. Right. Ah, I see. I see. Thank you. That would make the show, instead of the Oscar show being 3 hours long, it would be 6 hours long. And we can't do that. Excuse me for making a little joke about that. It's just that we can't do it. The category is best foreign language films. One thing I didn't say before, foreign language film. You know, for the Oscars, it's about films that are not in the English language. But every single country looks at foreign language films in other languages. So your question is a good one. There is no answer. I have no answer to it. We're not there yet, certainly, and it's a different. I guess part of the answer is we are talking about. We're talking about world cinema, but we're talking about world cinema in the English language for all of the other categories, but including the foreign language categories if a country wants to qualify in the main part. And when a country wants to qualify in the main section of the Academy, then cinematographers are voted on and film editors are voted on and actors, and A.R. Rahman wins an Oscar for music, so it happens, but not the way you want it to happen. Maybe one day. That's a long way off. Question.
Sir, I just just want to know that while elaborating the thing, you said the active member. So what do you mean by active member?
Say that again, please. I couldn't hear you.
While explaining the thing, you said that only active members can vote. So what do you mean by unactive members?
An acting member?
Active
member. Oh, an active member.
Thank you.
Members who are active are members who are either continuing to work in the industry, making film, writing scripts, producing film, acting in film. They are basically the active members of the Academy. And then there are some special members who are lifetime members of the Academy who over the years have proven to be, excellent, superb, beyond even active members in their work. And they too are eligible to vote. Those who are not eligible to vote are some of the adjacent organizations, like agents in the U.S. are members of the Academy, but they're non-voting members of the Academy. And then some of the suppliers, like labs, the heads of labs and the heads of some of the unions and the heads of some of the cinema organization are members, but they're not voting members because, as I said at the beginning, almost all of the 7,000 members, 6,000 active members, are craftspeople, are people who make movies, are people who actually do the work that produces the cinema we love so much. Question? No more questions. Well, here's one. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was a wonderful presentation. My question to you is, though India is one of the biggest producer of films, I don't think we've really done well at the Academy Awards. Mm-hmm. So what are we missing something grossly? What would your advice be to the new generation of filmmakers?
The new generation of filmmakers who are you say, working where?
In India, I'm talking about India.
But when you say what are you missing? What do you mean by that?
I mean, according to me, Indian films have not been nominated, that much when you look at France or Italy. So though we make a lot of films every year, is it because our films are very different? We have song and dance. Is that something that is not acceptable, or
no?
Is that
it's a great question, and I have to say again, from my own point of view and my point of view as the past president of the Academy, absolutely, positively not. We are open and interested in the work of filmmakers all over the world, especially the young filmmakers today, all over the world. So no, no restriction whatsoever. 1,200 films is a lot of film, of course. And from those 1,200 emerge great ones. I'm hoping that your entry in this year's competition is great. I haven't seen it yet, but I will soon. So no, I would say to you, you're not missing anything at all.
Right. Thank you so much.
Keep at it. Keep at it. And it's as direct for an Indian film to be nominated as it is for a European film to be nominated. It just is. Story and execution. You're great filmmakers. You're Sajid Ray, as I said there. You know, there I was, a teenager, looking at Pata Panichelli and saying, oh my God, this is something that interests me deeply. So, you know, you guys will still emerge in your greatness. You guys, especially the young guys. Question? There's one. The woman who is asking the question is my wife. Yes, Nancy.
I was just going to clarify something to answer what he was saying. I think the slight difference between making a film in India that is, it's the way that it gets recognized, I think, in the Oscars is when it transcends borders and it becomes more universal. The story is something that anybody, anywhere can relate to, even if it's about something here. It's when it transcends the culture and really what you were saying earlier about touches our common humanity.
You're my darling wife, but in addition to that, there's wisdom in what you say. I think that's true. I think it's true. It is, sure. And isn't that what we want? You know, we want our films. I'm not talking about the wonderful, great work that the commercial film industry in the United States does, but the special work that young American filmmakers are doing. Some of them will transcend borders and play really well in India. We saw a movie the other day, just to give you an example. I'm only saying this not to suggest to you that I'm going to vote for it or anything else. We saw a wonderful movie called Moonlight by a director named Barry Jenkins, a young man named Barry Jenkins. I think it's going to play all over the world. Keep an eye on it, Moonlight. I think that's what you're talking about. Okay, question? Here's one.
Yeah. So what if a foreign language film gets nominated, or even if it doesn't get nominated, but suppose it's submitted this year, 2016. Suppose the interrogation is submitted already, but it doesn't get nominated, or even if it gets and doesn't win. What if next year it releases in America? Will it be nominated again as in the main category?
It can be. It can be, but you have to meet the requirements. If it doesn't get nominated, then it just doesn't get nominated, and then it's eligible when it plays in the United States for 7 days the next year. It can be nominated. Yep. Good question.
Another question is about technical quality or the quality of subtitling. Does the quality of subtitling matter for the selection process?
Yes, it does, because in what I read to you, it may not say these exact words, but it does say that the subtitles have to be legible, and I would add to that that it would flow in the English language. The subtitles have to be excellent. They just plain old have to be excellent, both visually and from what they have to say. Yes, they do.
Hello, sir. Quite a rewarding experience listening to you.
Well, thank you.
I kind of worship three amigos in Hollywood, you know. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but like Alejandro and Guillermo and Alfonso.
Oh,
Cuarón,
those guys.
Those guys, yeah. So they are amazing, and I kind of get enthralled by their filmmaking.
Yeah.
And the movies they are making for last 10 years.
He's talking about Mexican filmmakers, three great Mexican filmmakers.
So they are kind of wonderful, and each one of their movies are kind of step up, and they are kind of like taking Hollywood by storm.
Yeah.
So can you give us a little insight on how they do what they do?
You know,
and,
it's
how
real-
we as Indians, can penetrate the Hollywood, this gargantua.
It's
this
so
kind of thing.
interesting that you notice that.
Any insight, because I suppose you know them.
For one thing, they are three attractive men, meaning that they're not only physically attractive, but they play well together. They're all friends.
Totally, yeah.
They're all pals. And they do great cinema. They do great cinema. Directing cinema, producing cinema. And Hollywood has recognized, Hollywood, voters, I should say, not Hollywood, Academy members have recognized their good work. I mean, there are the three of them, then there are cinematographers like Emmanuel Lubezki, Chivo, maybe the fourth amigo. They're in the game. They are in the game all the time. They're off making movies. They're off, in the wilderness shooting movies for 2 years at a time, and then they come back. I think that the Academy voters are interested in the work of the three or four of them. In fact, Chivo himself has won, I think, 3 Oscars in a row for his cinematography because he's better than anybody. He is just simply better than anyone. It's a hard question to answer because there's a subjectiveness to the question. They work at it. They, to be real crass about it, I wouldn't be surprised, I don't know this for sure, but I bet they hire publicists to help them, relate to the community and their films and have the community relate to their work. They're good guys, I can't say much more than that, but I can because they're expert filmmakers. That's what I can say.
That answers my question. Thanks.
You're welcome. How about another one? One last one. If not, I'm grateful for you all. Thank you very much. For anybody want to stay to see my slideshow again? No? Okay. Thanks a lot, everybody. Thank you. I'll give you this.